My name is Marcus, and until recently, I prided myself on my skepticism. I've never been the type to be easily impressed. Horror stories have always fascinated me, yes, but for the pleasure of fiction, of imagination, of the catharsis that they provide. I was one of those who laughed during monster movies, who dismantle conspiracy theories with cold logic, who mock urban legends like someone reading old jokes. For me, ghosts, spirits, entities, all of this was nothing more than a great, collective metaphor, a primitive way of explaining the unknown. At least that's what I believed, before that week, before that farm. It was there that everything changed. It was there that my shield, that arrogant skepticism that protected me from fear, shattered. And not because of a movie or a well-told story, but because of what I saw, of what I lived. It was just supposed to be a break, an escape. Clara and I had been together for 3 years. We lived well, as far as possible, but the routine began to wear away the colors of our relationship. It was as if we were trapped in a cycle that repeated itself without emotion. Work all day, bills to pay, hellish traffic, silent dinners, and listless nights in front of the TV. We existed together, but we had stopped living. And it was at that point, in that kind of emotional stagnation, that the idea of running away for a bit came up. We found the ad by chance. One morning, one of those endless scrolls on your cell phone, between sleep and insomnia, rustic farm in an isolated area, ideal for couples looking for absolute relaxation, no internet, no neighbors, just nature and silence. There were few photos, but the scenery looked like something out of an old movie. Rolling hills, dense woods in the background, and a sturdy wooden house with a porch and barn to the side, a refuge in the middle of nowhere. We made the reservation on impulse, 1 week, 7 days out of the world, and for some reason that excited us like we hadn't felt in months. The trip started peacefully, but the road to the farm made the feeling of isolation clear. After we turned off the main road, the asphalt turned to gravel, and the gravel turned to dirt. At every turn, civilization seemed to slowly fade from the rearview mirror. No cell phone signal, no houses nearby, just trees and the sound of tires on dry ground, as if we were entering a forgotten land. We arrived late in the afternoon. The sky was painted in shades of orange and purple, as if someone had spilled paint over the horizon. The house was even more imposing than in the photos. Dark wood, worn by time but solid. You could smell the smell of history permeating the boards. Clara smiled as she stepped onto the porch, as if that place had been made for us. But the barn was different. Huge, faded red, almost pink in some parts, as if time had sucked its color. The doors were ajar and swayed slightly in the wind, emitting a low, repetitive creak. That bothered me, but I didn't say anything. It looked silly, just an old barn after all, but there was something there. Something difficult to explain, as if that barn was waiting, as if he knew we were there. We unloaded our bags and entered the house. The interior was cozy with rustic furniture, a stone fireplace and the smell of old wood. There were no electronics, nothing but a record player, some dusty records and a stack of old books. It was as if time had stopped in there. I thought it was romantic even. That first night we drank wine by the fireplace and listened to smooth jazz playing on the record player. For a moment, we forgot about life outside. We slept early, lulled by the absolute silence. No cars, no sounds of the city, not even the chirping of crickets, just the wind outside, and every now and then a muffled creak from the barn. The next morning, I went out to explore the land. Clara stayed in bed, wrapped in the sheets, laughing at my childish excitement. The air was cool, the sky was clear, and there was a smell of damp earth in the air. I walked through the trees, touched the barbed wire fence that bordered the property, and heard birds I couldn't identify. It was a different silence there, not empty, but dense, as if nature itself was holding its breath. As I approached the barn, something stopped me. It wasn't fear, not yet. It was a sensation, a kind of intuition, like when you enter a place and feel like you're being watched. The doors were still ajar, and for a moment I swear I saw movement inside, a quick, almost imperceptible shadow. But when I approached and called just in case, there was no response. The interior was dark, with beams of light coming through the cracks in the wood. a smell of old hay mixed with something more metallic perhaps, like rusty blood. I didn't go in, not that day. I turned around and went back home trying to laugh at myself, but a part of me couldn't laugh. Clara noticed. During coffee, he looked at me over the mug and said, "You look strange." I shook my head trying to hide it. "It's just the weather. Too much silence gets on my nerves." She laughed, but her smile faltered for a moment, as if she was feeling something too, as if it wasn't just me. That night, Clara woke up scared. He said he had a strange dream. It spoke of whispers, of a tall figure standing outside the window. I tried to reassure her, saying that it must have just been the sound of the wind, some random image from the unconscious. But when I got up to check the windows, I saw marks on the pane, as if dirty fingers had passed through there, long, almost inhuman. The barn was darker that night, more present. And what came after? Well, I'll tell you that. But I'll tell you one thing, it wasn't just imagination. None of that was the invention of my skeptical mind. The farm had secrets, and they were no longer sleeping. The farm had secrets, and they were no longer sleeping. That morning, after Clara's strange dream and the marks on the window, something inside me woke up, as if my body had understood before my mind that we were in danger. I tried to rationalize, as I always did. Maybe it was just dirt on the window. Maybe Clara was just overwhelmed by the environment. Too much silence, too much darkness, too much isolation. But the truth is that I couldn't pretend that everything was okay either. The next day, the weather seemed different. Not the weather in the sky, the weather was even beautiful, but the weather of the place. The atmosphere. The air felt heavier, thicker, as if the world itself had held its breath. Not even the birds sang. Clara spent the morning quietly, walking around the house as if she were hearing something I couldn't hear. I asked if everything was okay. She hesitated. "It's as if the house hears us," he murmured, as if he had eyes. That gave me goosebumps. I laughed awkwardly, trying to ward off the discomfort with a little joke, but even my words sounded hollow. From then on, everything seemed to enter a different frequency. That afternoon, I decided, against common sense and my own instinct, to enter the barn. I took a flashlight and went alone. I didn't say anything to Clara. I didn't want to worry her, and the truth is that I also wanted to prove to myself that it was all just paranoia, that there was nothing there but hay and dust. But I was wrong. The inside of the barn was much larger than it appeared from the outside. The high ceiling disappeared into darkness, supported by wooden beams covered in cobwebs. The smell was unbearable. Mold, rust, and something that reminded me of spoiled meat. The flashlight's light cut through the darkness in trembling beams, gradually revealing parts of the environment. There were old tools hanging on the walls, hose, hooks, chains, as if no one had touched them in decades. At the back of the barn, I found a wooden ladder leading down, almost hidden behind a bunch of stacked boxes. There was no point in there being a basement there. I hadn't seen any external openings that suggested that. But there it was, a narrow, damp staircase, like an open wound on the floor. I stood still for a while, staring at that entrance. The flashlight started to blink. Low battery, of course, almost symbolic. I took one step, then another. The wood creaked beneath my feet, and the air grew colder with each step. At the end of the stairs there was a room, small, low, dark as pitch. And on him, marks on the walls, deep scratches, as if someone or something had desperately tried to get out of there, and in the center, a circle made with stones and burnt earth. It felt like some kind of ritual. There were symbols scratched on the floor. I didn't recognize any of them, but my body reacted immediately. The hairs on my arms stood up, and my stomach turned. I stumbled out of there, sweating cold, feeling the taste of panic in my mouth. I hastily closed the barn, locked it with a rusty chain I found lying on the ground, and returned home, trying not to look as scared as I was. Clara noticed. She always notices. "You went in there, right?" I didn't respond right away. I just hugged her. "We need to leave," I whispered. "Tomorrow." She held my hand tightly. "We're leaving tomorrow." But tomorrow never came the way we expected. That night, Clara had another dream. This time she screamed. He woke up shaking, saying that they were coming, that he had seen eyes inside the walls, arms, sticking out of the floor. I tried to calm her down, but she was in a trance, as if she were still inside the nightmare. Only after a few minutes did she come to her senses, and cried. For the first time in years, I saw her cry in fear. I started hearing sounds during the early hours of the morning, footsteps on the floor even when Clara was sleeping next to me, doors that creaked by themselves, and the radio on the record player played on its own. Always the same old, instrumental, dragging music, like a lullaby made by a madman. I didn't sleep anymore. He sat there staring at the front door, waiting for something. That house seemed to breathe. It looked alive. Sometimes the windows vibrated, even when there was no wind. Other times, it was as if I heard a voice calling me from outside, always low, always insistent. On the 5th day, Clara disappeared. I woke up, and she wasn't in bed, not even in the house. I looked everywhere, screaming his name until my throat burned. My despair grew like an animal inside me. By the time I saw it, the barn doors were open again, the chain lying on the floor, as if someone had broken it easily. I ran in. Inside, the circle of stones was still there, but now, in the center, there was a mark, like footprints made by something walking with huge feet and long toes, footprints that ended there, and no Clara. It was at that moment that reality left me. Or maybe you finally caught up with me. I stayed there, on my knees, trying to understand, trying to deny it. But there was no more shield. There was no more logic. On that farm, the impossible was real, and Clara had been taken. Night fell, and I stayed there, sitting on the porch of the house, listening to the sound of the wind, and something else. One breath, heavy, coming from the forest. I knew I was no longer alone. Something was watching me, something I had woken up by accident, or that maybe he had been waiting for me for a long time. And it was then that I understood the cruelest thing of all. The farm was never a refuge. It was an invitation to enter, to see, to feel, and now, to stay. The farm was never a refuge. It was an invitation to enter, to see, to feel, and now, to stay. That night, I was no longer the same man who had arrived there 5 days before. My skepticism had been devoured, my logic swallowed by something that lived in the cracks of time, in that forgotten place. Clara's absence was an open hole inside me, throbbing like an exposed wound. I couldn't think straight. Reality seemed to have slipped into a distorted plane, where the impossible no longer seemed so impossible. I sat on the porch until the sky went completely dark. The air was thick, stuffy, almost unbreathable. The forest seemed to whisper. The branches moved without wind. The sound wasn't natural. They weren't animals. It was something different, like chewed words, whispered by an invisible mouth in the dark. I called for Clara. 1, 2, 10 times, nothing. Just the echo of my own voice swallowed by the trees. I went back inside and locked all the doors. I dragged furniture, stacked chairs, anything that gave me the illusion of safety. But deep down, I knew. The house wasn't protecting me. She was holding me, keeping me there, arrested. That morning, I woke up to footsteps on the ceiling, heavy, slow, as if something too big to be human was walking on the roof. The wood creaked under the weight. With each step, the sound went down the walls, vibrating the floor, making my body go cold. I got a knife from the kitchen. It was useless, and I knew it, but that's all I got. The lights flickered. The record player turned itself on again. The same song, but now distorted, slower, as if the disc was melting. The front door opened by itself, with a long creak. Painful. The air that came in was cold, icy, but not like the common cold. It was a cold that seemed to touch the inside of the bone, cold that carried something old, forgotten. A cold that had a smell of damp earth, of rotten wood, of death. I approached, knife in hand. The darkness outside was absolute, and in the middle of the darkness, 2 eyes, high, fixed, standing still, staring at me. They didn't blink. They were like holes in the night itself. I don't remember exactly what happened next. Just flashes, disjointed images, my bare feet running through the mud, trees passing me like figures, a high-pitched sound in the ear, like static mixed with screaming. And then, the barn. I was there again, but now, different. The structure appeared larger inside, much bigger, as if he had grown up, as if space had folded, multiplied. The walls pulsed, literally, as if they were breathing. as if they were made of flesh. In the center, the circle. But he had changed. There were no longer just stones. There were symbols scratched with fresh blood. There were objects around, bones, pieces of mirror, old photographs, burned around the edges, and Clara. Clara was in the middle, lying down, unconscious, but live. I launched myself towards him. I knelt down next to her, touched her face. It was cold, but it was breathing. She mumbled something, disjointed words, a language I didn't know, an ancient language, guttural, as if something spoke through her. It was then that I felt it, the presence, behind me. I turned around slowly, and I saw it. It was tall, lean, too high, a distorted body, as if it had broken, put back together the wrong way. The arms were too long, the fingers were like dry twigs. The face, or what was left of it, was a grotesque mixture of human and animal forms. A wide smile which didn't seem to express joy, but hunger. It watched me like someone recognizing something, as if you already knew me, as if he was waiting for me. I was paralyzed. The air disappeared. The knife fell out of my hand without me noticing. And then Clara opened her eyes. Blacks, completely black. And she spoke, but not with her voice. "He chose you, Marcus. It was the last thing I heard before everything went dark. I woke up days later," they said, "in the nearest town, found by a farmer who saw my figure wandering down the dirt road, covered in mud and dried blood. I was in shock. They took me to the hospital, then to the police station. They said I was delusional. They said Clara was never found. The farm had been abandoned for years, that no one rented it, that the number was non-existent. But I know what I saw. I know what I experienced. It wasn't a dream. That week was real. Clara was real. And what was in that barn is still there, waiting. The police never found the barn, or rather, they found it, but empty. No marks, no symbols, nothing. They said it was just an old hollow building. They treated me like a lunatic, a man in mourning, dehydrated, in shock. But there's something I've never told anyone. The morning I was rescued, I found something in my coat pocket. An object that doesn't belong to me. A vinyl record, no label. Just circular scratches worn by time. And when I put it on, because yes, I did, I hear the music, the same, that damn slurred melody. And for a moment, I hear her voice, Clara, calling for me, asking to come back. But I know it's not really her. It's him, the thing that took her. The farm let me leave for a reason, because now I'm the new invitation. And if you're hearing this, maybe it's already too late.